You know what nobody tells you? Life is not hard because you're weak. Life feels hard because you've been carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations while ignoring your own strength. And that's why you keep breaking down when things go wrong. It's not because you don't have what it takes. It's because you haven't built the emotional muscles to handle what life throws at you. Let's be honest. You're not tired of the grind. You're tired of feeling like you fall apart every time something doesn't go your way. And if you're sick of that, if you're ready to stop crumbling and start standing tall, then listen closely, because emotional strength is not something you're born with. It's something you build. The truth is, emotional strength is like a set of habits that you practice every single day. Strong people aren't those who never feel pain. They're the ones who know how to keep moving through it. They don't drown in stress. They learn how to breathe through it. They don't let fear decide for them. They face it head on. Every single person you admire who looks unshakable, they weren't born that way. They learned how to say no without guilt, how to stop comparing themselves to everyone else, and how to focus on what they can control instead of obsessing over what they can't. Think about it. How many times have you let someone else's opinion wreck your whole day? How many nights have you spent replaying conversations in your head, wishing you'd spoken up? How often do you waste your energy on things you can't change instead of using that energy to grow? That's what's draining you. It's not life. It's the habits that keep you emotionally fragile. So here's the truth bomb. The difference between people who bend and break and those who bend and bounce back isn't luck. It's habits. The way you talk to yourself, the way you manage your time, the way you protect your peace, the way you respond instead of react, all of it adds up to strength. And if you're ready to stop letting life knock you down and start living like someone who can take the hit and keep moving forward, then it's time to adopt the habits that build emotional strength brick by brick. Because strength isn't about never falling, it's about rising every single time you do. Most people look at someone who seems unshakable and assume they were just born that way, that they came into the world with a thicker skin, a stronger backbone, and a mind wired for resilience. But that belief is the very thing that keeps so many stuck, because emotional strength is not something you inherit. It's something you build day by day through the choices you make and the habits you practice. Think about it the same way you think about your body. Nobody expects to be strong without ever lifting a weight, running a mile, or testing their limits. You wouldn't walk into a gym for the first time and be frustrated that you can't bench press 200 pounds. You'd understand it takes training, effort, consistency, and time. Emotional strength works the same way. It's a muscle, and the habits you adopt are the reps that make it stronger. I remember listening to a woman share her story about losing her job unexpectedly. At first, she admitted she crumbled, she panicked, blamed herself, and spiraled into self-doubt. But then she did something different. Instead of drowning in the fear of the unknown, she started practicing new habits. She journaled every morning to ground herself. She replaced the loop of negative self-talk with affirmations that reminded her of her worth. She made a habit of applying to 3 jobs daily instead of procrastinating. A few months later, not only did she find a new role, but she found one that paid more and aligned better with her values. Was she born stronger than others? No. She built strength through small, deliberate actions that shifted her mindset and stabilized her emotions. Habits are the blueprint for your emotional resilience. If you wake up and scroll through social media, comparing your life to everyone else's highlight reel, you're training yourself in weakness, in envy, in dissatisfaction. But if you start your day by asking, what's one thing I can control today? You're building strength, discipline, and focus. Every choice is a rep. Every time you stop yourself from reacting impulsively and instead pause to breathe and respond thoughtfully, you're putting weight on that barbell of emotional strength. Every time you say no to something that drains you, even when it feels uncomfortable, you're adding another rep to your training. Ask yourself, how many of the habits you have today are actually weakening you instead of strengthening you? Do you avoid difficult conversations because you fear conflict? Do you bottle up emotions because you don't want to look vulnerable? Do you numb yourself with distractions instead of facing the real issue head on? If so, then you've been practicing weakness without even realizing it. And here's the catch. Just like your body, your mind and emotions adapt to what you train them in. If you train in avoidance, you'll get really good at running away. If you train in people-pleasing, you'll master the art of abandoning yourself. But if you train in courage, self-awareness and discipline, those habits become second nature, and suddenly the things that used to crush you don't even shake you anymore. One of the best real-life examples of this is athletes. Think about professional fighters or marathon runners. They don't become champions because they never get knocked down or never hit a wall. They become champions because they've built habits that teach their bodies and minds how to recover quickly, how to push through when it hurts, how to stay calm when pressure is at its peak. Emotional strength follows the same law. The habit of pausing instead of reacting builds emotional stability. The habit of reframing challenges as opportunities builds resilience. The habit of reminding yourself daily of what you've already overcome builds confidence. So the actionable path is clear. If you want to be emotionally strong, don't wait for life to magically make you that way. Build it through your habits. Start with one. Maybe it's journaling for 5 minutes a day to track your emotions and learn your triggers. Maybe it's replacing one negative thought with one empowering one. Maybe it's choosing to sit in discomfort instead of numbing it with distraction. These may look small, but repetition compounds. 6 months from now, you'll look back and realize that what once sent you spiraling now barely phases you. That's the quiet power of habits. They rewire you, they stabilize you, they make you unshakable. So I'll leave you with this question: what habits are you practicing today? And are they making you stronger or weaker? Because emotional strength isn't a gift, it's a practice. And if you commit to building it day by day, rep by rep, you'll become the kind of person who doesn't just survive life, you thrive through it. When you look at people who seem emotionally strong, it's easy to believe they don't feel pain, that somehow they've figured out a way to glide through life untouched by heartbreak, rejection, failure, or stress, but that's a lie. Strong people feel everything you feel. They get scared, they cry, they wrestle with self-doubt, and they experience loss just like anyone else. The difference is they don't let pain stop them from moving forward. They don't collapse under the weight of struggle. They stand back up even when it hurts. They know that emotional strength doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from moving through it. Think about a time in your own life when you were knocked down hard. Maybe it was a breakup that left you feeling like you couldn't breathe. Maybe it was a job rejection after months of hard work and interviews. Maybe it was betrayal by someone you trusted. In that moment, you felt shattered. You questioned your worth, your abilities, maybe even your future. Now ask yourself, did you stay there forever, or did you eventually get back up, dust yourself off, and take the next step? That's emotional strength in action. It doesn't mean you didn't cry or feel broken. It means you chose not to stay broken. I once heard the story of a man who lost his business in the middle of an economic crash. He had poured years of sweat money and sacrifice into building it, and in one brutal year, it all collapsed. He admitted that he spent weeks in a fog, unable to get out of bed, drowning in shame and fear. But then he realized that lying there wouldn't change anything. He forced himself to adopt small daily habits, walking each morning to clear his head, reading books to sharpen his skills, writing down 3 things he could do each day to move forward. A year later, he had started a new business. Was he still hurting from the loss? Of course. But his pain didn't paralyze him. It pushed him to rebuild. That's what separates those who crumble from those who rise. The truth is, pain is not the enemy. Pain is inevitable. Life will knock you down more times than you can count. Emotional strength is the decision to keep moving through it instead of letting it trap you. Ask yourself, how many times have you stopped chasing something because it got uncomfortable? How many times have you given up because you told yourself you couldn't handle the disappointment? What if, instead of running from the pain, you let it fuel you? What if, instead of saying, this hurts too much, you said, this hurt is proof that I'm growing? Strong people don't avoid the storm, they walk straight into it, knowing they'll come out tougher on the other side. That's why athletes push their bodies through pain, why entrepreneurs take risks even after failures, why survivors of heartbreak eventually open themselves up to love again. They understand that pain is not permanent, but quitting is. Every time you move through pain, you're teaching yourself that you can handle more than you think. You're stacking evidence for your own resilience. So how do you practice this in your own life? Start by reframing how you see discomfort. Instead of interpreting it as a sign to stop, see it as a sign you're growing. When you're anxious before a presentation, don't avoid it. Step up and give it anyway. When rejection stings, don't shut down. Use it as information to improve and try again. When life knocks you flat, give yourself permission to feel it. But don't confuse feeling pain with being defeated. Write down what you learned, take one small action, and move forward. That action might be tiny, sending one email, making one phone call, journaling one page, but it's the movement that matters. Real life examples are everywhere. J.K. Rowling was rejected by more than a dozen publishers before Harry Potter was finally accepted. She has openly shared how depression and poverty nearly consumed her. Did she feel pain? Absolutely. Did she let that pain convince her she wasn't good enough? No, she kept moving. Oprah Winfrey endured abuse and poverty in her childhood, yet she transformed that pain into purpose, creating a life of influence and empowerment. Strong people don't escape suffering, they carry it, they learn from it, and they use it as fuel to keep going. The next time life hurts, pause and ask yourself, will I let this pain stop me, or will I move with it? That's the defining choice, because strength isn't about being unbreakable, it's about refusing to stay broken. It's about understanding that pain is part of the process, not the end of the journey. And when you commit to moving forward through pain, instead of avoiding it, you discover that you're far stronger than you ever believe. Emotional strength is not about pretending that nothing bothers you. It is about training yourself to respond in a way that builds resilience rather than breaks it. Controlling your reactions is one of the most powerful skills you can develop because life is going to throw things at you that you cannot predict. You cannot control how people treat you, but you can control how you respond to it. You cannot control setbacks, but you can control whether you let them defeat you or teach you. Imagine that you are in traffic. Someone cuts you off and instantly you feel your blood pressure rise. You want to lay on the horn, scream, maybe even speed up to show them you are not to be messed with. But then what? You ruin your own mood, you carry that anger into work, and suddenly one careless driver has hijacked your entire day. What if instead you took a deep breath and said, not today? You don't get to control my peace. That choice is where strength lies. It is not that the situation changed. It is that you changed your reaction to it. Think about professional athletes. When they miss a shot, when a referee makes a bad call, when the crowd boos, they don't have the luxury of breaking down in that moment. They train their minds to stay calm, to stay in the game, to focus on what is next. That same discipline applies to everyday life. The co-worker who takes credit for your idea, the family member who pushes your buttons, the unexpected bill that shows up in the mail, all of these things test your reactions. Do you allow them to derail you, or do you pause and choose a response that aligns with the life you want? Emotional strength is built in those tiny moments when you decide not to explode, not to overthink, not to spiral into negativity. One of the most powerful real-life examples of controlled reactions comes from people who practice mindfulness. I once heard about a woman who lost her job unexpectedly. Instead of panicking and falling apart, she gave herself 1 hour to cry, vent, and release her frustration. After that, she sat down, made a list of her skills, and began applying for new positions. Within weeks, she had interviews lined up. Did losing the job hurt? Of course. But she controlled her reaction and shifted into action. She didn't deny the pain. She simply refused to live in it longer than necessary. That is emotional strength in action. Ask yourself, how many times have you wasted hours, maybe even days, replaying a negative situation in your mind, feeding it with more energy than it ever deserved? How many arguments could have ended sooner if you had paused before reacting? How many relationships would be healthier if you responded with calm instead of anger? Controlling your reactions is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about mastering them so they don't master you. Emotional strength comes from realizing that no one else should hold the remote control to your emotions. A simple, actionable way to begin controlling your reactions is the practice of the 5-second pause. The next time you feel triggered, whether it is anger, jealousy, or frustration, pause and count slowly to 5 before responding. That tiny gap between stimulus and response is where your power lies. Another tool is reframing. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I use this?" These shifts might sound small, but over time they build a mental muscle that turns you into someone who doesn't break under pressure but bends and adjusts. It is also important to remember that people often project their own struggles onto you. When someone is rude, dismissive, or critical, it usually says more about what they are carrying than about you. If you react emotionally every time, you hand them the keys to your inner peace. But when you stay composed, you take the power back. You teach yourself that your worth is not determined by someone else's mood or opinion. So the next time life challenges you, ask yourself, do I want to react in a way that drains me, or do I want to respond in a way that strengthens me? Every choice adds up. Every calm response builds resilience. Every moment you refuse to let chaos control you is another brick in the foundation of your emotional strength. And when you master your reactions, you don't just survive life's challenges, you grow through them. Emotional strength is built through resilience, and one of the most important ways to develop that resilience is by learning to navigate failure. Too many people treat failure as a mark of shame, as if one mistake defines their worth or ability, when in reality it is the single greatest teacher anyone can have. Every successful person you admire has failed countless times before achieving their goals. It is not the absence of failure that creates strength, but the ability to get back up, to persist, and to grow through each setback. Failure is not the enemy. It is the tool that shapes emotional toughness and wisdom. Think about Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times before successfully inventing the light bulb. Each failed attempt could have broken his spirit, yet he framed those failures as experiments. Each one a necessary step toward success. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That mindset didn't just produce one of the most transformative inventions in history, it demonstrated the power of resilience and the emotional fortitude required to keep going when it feels impossible. The same principle applies in everyday life. Consider a young athlete striving to make a professional team who gets cut repeatedly. Every rejection feels devastating, yet those who ultimately succeed use each setback as motivation to train harder, refine their skills, and improve their mindset. They learn to separate their self-worth from the outcome and focus instead on progress and growth. Failure becomes fuel, not a reason to quit. Look at your own life for a moment. How often have you let a single mistake, a rejection, or a misstep convince you to give up? Maybe you failed an exam and thought you weren't smart enough. Perhaps you launched a project that didn't succeed and concluded you weren't cut out for the challenge. Maybe a relationship ended, leaving you doubting your worth. The problem isn't the failure itself. It's attaching your identity to it. Failing does not make you less. It is simply an opportunity to learn, adjust, and move forward. The question to ask is not, why me? But what can I take from this to improve? Resilience requires reframing setbacks as essential parts of the journey rather than endpoints. Every person you admire, Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, J.K. Rowling, has faced rejection and failure. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Rowling's first Harry Potter manuscript was rejected multiple times. Their success was not born from avoiding failure. It was forged by refusing to let setbacks define them. They understood that resilience is about bouncing forward, not merely bouncing back, becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable with every challenge. So how do you build this kind of emotional resilience? Start by failing forward. When things don't go as planned, don't hide from it or dwell in shame. Examine what happened, extract the lessons, and decide what actions you will take next. Treat failure as data, not disaster. Take one small step after another, because resilience is like a muscle. It strengthens through repeated practice. The more you face setbacks and continue moving, the stronger your capacity to handle life's challenges becomes. Ask yourself, what failure have I been carrying as a burden instead of a lesson? What dreams have I abandoned after one setback? What goals have I given up on because of fear of failure? Imagine if those setbacks were actually the exact stepping stones needed to propel you forward. Life will knock you down repeatedly. That is guaranteed. The real question is whether you rise each time. Every rise builds strength, sharpens wisdom, and reinforces emotional stability. When failure comes, don't see it as a reason to quit. See it as proof that you are actively engaged in life, taking risks and pushing yourself. True success is not the absence of failure. It is the accumulation of resilience developed through facing and overcoming it. One of the most powerful habits of emotionally strong people is the ability to let go of what they cannot control. This is not about giving up or becoming passive. It is about freeing yourself from the prison of trying to fix things that were never in your hands to begin with. So many of us waste years of our lives holding on to the illusion that if we just push harder, argue longer, or worry enough, we can force outcomes to bend to our will. But the truth is, you cannot control other people's behavior, you cannot control every twist of life, and you cannot control the past. What you can control is how you respond, how you adapt, and how you choose to move forward. Emotional strength lies in knowing the difference. Think about the last time you stayed up all night worrying about something completely out of your control. Maybe it was the way a colleague treated you at work. Maybe it was whether someone liked you. Maybe it was the result of an application or opportunity. Did your worry change the outcome, or did it just drain your energy and make you miserable? The truth is, worry is often a disguise for a desire to control the uncontrollable. Letting go is not easy because your brain wants certainty. It wants to believe that if you keep holding on tighter, you'll eventually get the outcome you want. But emotional strength requires a different kind of bravery, the courage to loosen your grip and trust yourself to handle whatever comes next. I remember a woman named Sarah who had gone through a painful breakup. For months, she replayed every conversation in her head, wondering what she could have done differently, obsessing over why he left, stalking his social media to see who he was with now. She was trapped in a loop of trying to control the uncontrollable, his choices, his emotions, his life. The more she tried to control, the weaker and more broken she felt. When she finally realized that she couldn't control him, but she could control what she did with her own time and energy, she started to heal. She enrolled in a pottery class, began exercising again, and started rebuilding her confidence. Letting go didn't mean she didn't care. It meant she cared more about herself and her future than she did about holding on was already gone. This principle applies everywhere. At work, you cannot control how your boss manages the company, but you can control the quality of your performance and how you carry yourself. In relationships, you cannot control how someone else feels or behaves, but you can control your boundaries and how you allow yourself to be treated. In life, you cannot control the fact that setbacks, illness, or disappointments will happen, but you can control how you rise from them. Emotional strength is built in these choices, not by bending the world to your will, but by mastering your response to it. So how do you actually practice this? Start by identifying what's really in your control. Grab a piece of paper and write down the situation that's weighing on you. Draw 2 columns, one for things I can control and one for things I can't control. Be brutally honest. If you're waiting on a promotion, you can control how hard you work, how proactive you are, and how you prepare for opportunities. But you can't control office politics or your boss's final decision. Once you see it on paper, it becomes clear where your energy should go. The second step is to redirect. Every time you catch yourself obsessing over something you can't control, stop and ask, is this helping me? Or is this draining me? And then consciously redirect that energy into something constructive. If you're replaying a conversation in your head, use that time to go for a run, call a friend, or focus on a project. It sounds simple, but over time it retrains your brain to stop feeding the cycle of frustration and helplessness. Letting go also means accepting uncertainty. That's hard for all of us because uncertainty feels dangerous. But ask yourself, has life ever truly been certain? Has everything ever gone exactly as you planned? No. And yet you've survived every twist and turn. You've adapted. You've grown. That is proof that you don't need control over everything. You just need faith in yourself that you can handle what comes. There's a quote that says, "You can't control the waves, but you can learn to surf." That's exactly what emotional strength looks like. The waves of life will never stop coming. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. Outcomes will surprise you. But if you let go of the need to control the waves, you can put your energy into becoming the kind of person who rides them with balance, resilience, and courage. So ask yourself, what are you holding on to right now that's outside of your control? Is it someone else's opinion? A decision that's already been made? A future that hasn't happened yet? What would happen if you released that grip? How much lighter would you feel if you put your focus back where it belongs? On your own choices, your own growth, your own power? That's where real emotion